Okay, thanks everyone for joining us on KRTD Chat. Here with us today we have Savage Joy. We've been doing these a lot more lately. I hope you guys appreciate it. So, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm just sharing this out on the Twitter.
Wonderful.
Happy. All right.
Okay, so you've been at this a long time, right?
Yeah. Over 4 years. So.
And you've been all over the place with different organizations, with different people, doing on the ground stuff by yourself now. And this has been like 4 years, you said?
Yeah, I was actually with 3 different organizations throughout that time. But it's not easy working with people when you have different, ideas of how you want to do things, and
Yes.
you can very easily butt heads, and I'm a very, very, very independent person, and it's easier for me to just be like, fuck it, I'd just rather go on my own, do what I want to do when I want to do it, and there's just much more freedom that way.
Sorry, I see Indy in the chat telling me to look at the camera. That's the problem with StreamYard. It looks like you're not looking at the camera. I'm sure people have told you that too if you've used StreamYard. It looks like you're not looking, but you are looking at the camera.
Hi, Indy. Love you.
Thanks, Indy, for joining us. Everybody check out Indy Left's newsletter and his Substack. It's really good. It puts everybody in there. Anyway, so how did you start? You said you've been with 3 organizations. Where did you start, and how did you first get into this?
So my first organization was Real Progressives, and essentially how I started was I did a 3-minute video in 2016 of I was volunteering at the Bernie office in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And it was my first political experience, and he changed so many of our lives. So that was a huge turning point in my life. So I didn't want to just type something like, glad I met you, see you later. So I made a video for people in the campaign office who I had met. And I got very emotional and said, my life is never going to be the same. This woke me up on so many levels, things like that. And it was like 3 minutes, and it ended up going viral. I wasn't planning on that at all. I don't like being in front of the camera, even still now. I'm just kind of like, but Steve Grumbine, who is the creator, manager, CEO of Real Progressives, kind of, pushed me for like 6 months. No, come with us. And I kept saying, no, I'm not going on camera. That's so daunting. I cannot do that. And finally I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'll try 1 episode. And it got like over 5,000 views, and I was a mess.
What was your first episode? Do you remember?
What's that?
What was the episode? Do you remember?
Yes, I do. It was the 1-year anniversary of when I was at Occupy DNC protesting essentially the DNC from coronating Hillary. So I was at the convention. I was out there with thousands of comrades, and we were chanting and marching, and it was over 100 degrees, and we were marching like 8 miles a day, and it was one of the worst weeks of many of our lives, pretty much everyone who was there. So I was kind of doing a post-mortem of 1 year ago that time. So it was, considering I had just become political in 2015, it seemed it was kind of symbolic to have that be the first show, because Bernard was the one who woke me up, and because seeing the injustice that happened firsthand, that also woke me up, and changed my perspective on pretty much everything.
Definitely. Where did you go from there? So you worked with RP for about how long?
3 years.
3 years. Where did you go after that?
Then I went with something called Uphill Media. I was there for maybe a year, and I'm I'm not a fan.
Okay.
So yeah.
And you were there for did you do the same kind of thing, interview shows at all these different places?
Yeah, well, I shouldn't say I've always done the same kind of shows, because that's not accurate anymore. I do the same kind of shows in the respect that they're always raw, and they're always from my perspective as an activist, a voter. I am not an actual journalist. I, was an English major. I wrote a book. I published many articles, but I'm not an actual journalist. So it's really just from an activist point of view. And that's how it's been since day one. The biggest change which has happened throughout the 4.5 years is I really stopped caring about candidates. From 2018 to 2020, I interviewed over 200 Bernie candidates from across the country, more than any other independent news person.
Wow.
And that was like my passion at that time. Let's get all of them elected. So I was taking on every state, every city. It was just my so-called litmus test was: you have Bernie's platform, you support Medicare for all, you have activism in your past, you support federal job guarantee, you support, and things like that. And and I ended up having over 200 of them, and it was great. It was awesome learning about all of the different hoops you have to jump through per state, to even get on a ballot, and so many of them shared their stories of corruption happening around them. So it was a really great learning experience. However, at this point in my life, I am focusing way more on my activism than on electoral politics. I think it's been quite obvious that even people who are so-called progressive, when they get elected, they are not. So I think it's very important that we need to realize that these people are politicians at the end of the day, and we have to be our own heroes. We can't have pop star figures and things like this. They do not have our best interest at heart. You may want to think they do, they don't. They are not. We are watching right now eugenics of the poor. We are watching this happen. The Dems have, the state, the House, the presidency, and we are watching people dying. We are watching people go more and more homeless. We're watching 13-hour food lines. We are, we're watching these people's lives being destroyed. So electoral politics ain't it. This is once every 2 to 4 years.
Mhm.
These people can't wait that long. What? I mean, that is nothing but privilege. Saying, well, just vote. Fuck, just vote. What are you going to do now? What these people, they don't care if you say you're going to vote in 2 years. They're laying on the street. They're hungry. You're
Mhm.
going to tell them just vote? That's privilege and that's fucked up.
Definitely. Now, continuing on your journey, you worked at you were with Roar. Right? Is that right after Uphill?
Yes, we were, the four of us were from Uphill.
Okay,
We
so you
just
were all from
decided
Uphill.
to break off.
Okay, so and then after Roar, immediately after you went by yourself, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we have that timeline. Now I want to focus a little bit on your activism. So now, you were involved with the March for Medicare for All that was in I think it was 62 cities. Is that right?
56.
56. That was close.
Yeah,
So.
I was one of the lead national organizers. There were 10 of us.
Okay.
So basically, I scheduled many of the bands and speakers, organizers. I recruited. I oversaw a lot of what went on, answered questions, held meetings. I was really involved heavily with the actual organizing. And then I
Mhm.
emceed the march in DC.
Definitely. Now, how many hours did you put into that? Would you say per week?
Um, I was doing about 16-hour days.
Oh my god! Was
Yeah, it
that
was.
7 days a week?
Oh yeah,
And
yep.
I'm assuming even if you weren't working, if something came up and something went wrong, let's say at 9 o'clock at night, and you weren't working at the time, you would immediately have to get on the phone or get in your email and do something to fix it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I would hear a text go off at like 3 in the morning, and I'm up. Like, it's that's how an activist mind works. Like,
Mhm.
what you're passionate about is the priority, period. You know you're not getting paid for this. You know you're not. It's a very thankless job in so many ways. Some people will say they appreciate it, other people will trash you and say what you're doing is pointless. So you can't count on that. So it's all about what you feel you need to do. That's what it comes down to.
Definitely. We have Kelly Lane in the chat saying we need direct action and to fight for election security/transparency.
Ranked choice voting, hand counted paper ballots, videotaped. Absolutely.
Definitely. Now, I want to get your opinion on this. I don't have. I do. I traditionally don't have a very. I mean, I don't have a high opinion of this. We have Andrew Yang starting a third party, which actually looks more like a PAC because they said they're not even going to be running candidates and they're just going to be endorsing Democrats and Republicans who support the same values as them, which is, to me, that sounds more like a PAC than a party.
They're not going to be running candidates?
So Andrew Yang has said they're mostly going to be focused on endorsing Democrats and Republicans and other candidates who meet their 6 pillars, which I'm going to bring up on the screen right now. Let's see, what are their
And
six?
that's not even a fucking party.
That's a PAC.
Yeah.
So their 6 pillars are ranked choice voting and open primaries, fact-based governance, human-centered capitalism, effective and modern government, UBI, and grace and tolerance. And this is from David Weigel. I'm not a fan of him, but he's the one who put it up. So that's their thing. Human-centered capitalism isn't a thing. I don't think you're.
Oxymoron coming from a moron.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to find very many Democrats and Republicans who want to do ranked choice voting, and the ones who do will never get elected anyway. So I'm not sure what his goal here is.
Well, I mean, ranked choice voting is an absolute necessity.
It is.
Absolutely. There is no question. It is without a doubt, the only way any kind of anti-establishment, even independent, third party, whatever, will ever get to that 5% to get on debate stages to hopefully try and move these establishment people over. This
Oh,
it's imperative.
we have Kelly Lane really quickly interjecting. Yang said Assange should stand trial. Done.
Yep, sure did.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone who follows me on Twitter knows, there is no one I roast more than Yang. I think he is an unserious showman. I think someone said to him, hey, you should do a third party. And he said, okay. He's never talked about third party. He's never supported third party. He had the option of endorsing a 40-year independent, the longest running, most successful third party independent senator / congressman in history, and he endorsed Biden instead.
Mm-hmm.
So what have you ever done for third parties? Not a damn thing.
And his Humanity Forward project endorsed only Democrats, to my knowledge.
Forward Party. That is the dumbest damn shit I ever heard. Forward Party. What are you, a Democrat, a Republican, a Ford? That makes no kind of sense. He's a mess. He is. I know you're a lot younger than me, but there was on SNL, they used to have this thing that was called Jack Handy Deep Thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I see a tweet by him, I'm like, I picture, the water and the rocks, Jack Handy, deep thoughts. Because, his posts, the one day he was like, I went out of the country and I tried acai berries and they really should grow them everywhere. That's what you're fucking tweeting about?
Definitely. The other thing, Andrew Yang is, as you mentioned, he's a clown, he's a showman. A lot of the young lefties were actually excited to see him run at first in New York City because we thought he would bring a different perspective. And then his policy platform came out. First, he didn't have anything for the police reform even listed on his website. He said, pending, coming soon. And then he kept changing his UBI policy. First, it was every month. Then it was every year. Then it was litmus tested. Then it wasn't litmus tested. Then it was twice a year. Then it was this. He couldn't get his policies straight.
Yeah, and, also, the thing is, as far as, first off, the police so-called reform, which doesn't need reform, that fucker needs to be defunded, but his police reform, he actually went on camera and was bragging about freaking Bloomberg and how he added so many more police to the subway system, which is infamous for arresting Black men because they jump, because they don't have a couple dollars to get to work and they jump the turnstiles, and that's how they end up in jail. So Yang is applauding Bloomberg for adding more police there. They asked him, who's your favorite billionaires? I thought that shit was a joke. He's like, Bloomberg, Elon Musk, and he's going down the line like he literally fucking has favorite billionaires.
Right, okay, that's great. Yeah, he's crazy. But the other thing he does is he doesn't. How do you run for mayor? And most of the policies on your website say pending.
And that's my concern about him having a party or whatever it is. He doesn't support Medicare for all. He doesn't give a shit about Green New Deal. He doesn't even support $15 wage, even though it should be higher than that. He doesn't support any single thing that leftists want, any single thing that would help humanity. He says humanity. He does not mean humanity. This shit isn't going to help anyone. And furthermore, he is not serious. He is unserious. First of all, he released his stupid ass party the day he released his book. So this is nothing but a look at me. So this dude, when he was running for president, had a guy on his knees spraying whipped cream in his mouth. Okay. Who the fuck does that? Furthermore, you're stage diving. You're also throwing fake $1,000 bills with your face on them. Like, he is a joke. He is an absolute joke. And I feel like he is very dangerous, not just his absolute love of Israel and his, his complete ignorance of all things foreign policy, but also because everything he pushes, like UBI, okay, it has its place, but without a federal job guarantee, without higher wages, without these things, it doesn't work. Furthermore, it's doing nothing to help pay inequities. How does that help? How does giving everyone the same amount help people of color, help women, help immigrants?
It really doesn't.
It doesn't help anything that needs systemic change.
It doesn't.
You're just putting a price tag on it here, money's all good. And then when conservatives say, you don't need Medicare for all, you're getting the fucking $1,000 a month, use that. And then the landlord says, you're getting an extra $1,000 a month, I'm upping your rent $500.
The thing about UBI, it doesn't work unless you place a law that says, even if you wanted to do the UBI, you'd have to put specific protections in place that says landlords cannot raise by certain amount. Like, you have to be very careful with that, because landlords might just raise your rent unless that's part of the policy. Part of the policy has to be you get $1,000 and they cannot raise your rent by $1,000. Well, then it would have to go alongside rent controls, very likely.
Right, exactly, which he doesn't have anything about.
Well, policy pending.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, let's give him, at least he's halfway there.
Yeah, well,
he can afford to wait. He's fucking rich.
Well, he's a millionaire. He's basically, now he's a more successful, somewhat more reasonable buffoon, but he's also a somewhat more successful buffoonish version of Trump.
Absolutely.
He's come to the right conclusion on some issues, but he doesn't understand where he's gone wrong on other issues and why he's wrong. But here's the other thing. If he wants to support some third party, he's a millionaire. What if he went and started backing Green Party candidates? Imagine that. That would be too much to ask, though. He has to start his own party instead.
That is so fascinating. They're not even running candidates. I need to look into this because
I don't think they are. They're more focused on endorsements.
The way that the Yang Gangers have been attacking me is like, well, he is, he's starting his own party so he can run, his kind of candidates. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, guess what? I don't want his kind of candidates because I don't want him as a candidate. He's awful. Furthermore, like, the Green Party has a hell of a lot of flaws. MPP flaws. But what this forward party is going to do is it is going to tear them down even more because he's such a joke that's why I think this shit's an op. I think someone sent him in and like, hey, you should do a third party. And like, he's that dense that he's like, yeah, I should. There was no research into this shit. He doesn't know damn thing about it. And now it's like he was sent in to be a spoiler of third parties. Like, it just, I don't know. He's just not bright. He's obviously like bright as in a businessman, but common sense bright. And no, he's a damn mess.
And so I think he doesn't have to, like, his money would be much better spent, even if it's not, the Green Party has a lot of flaws, but sometimes they run candidates that are okay. If he were to take his money, vet some of those candidates, Greens, Socialist Party, other parties, and say, you know what, maybe my money would be better spent with somebody else who can actually, but he's not a leftist, so why would I expect him to give to any lefty candidates?
Yeah.
That's the problem in my mind. It sounds good on paper until you realize he's not a leftist.
And, another thing I thought of last night is like, he's like bragging about, I'm an independent now. Well, listen, if you would have just won your mayoral race, you would have been a Dem and you would have been fine with that shit. So why all of a sudden are you like, I need to get out of this party?
This is another one of his projects. You know who he reminds me of? Except he's more of a clown than him. He reminds, in a little bit, he reminds you of Cenk Uygur, except Uygur actually did a couple of good things before he went off the deep end. Because the thing about Cenk is, he starts 30 different projects that he does not have the time to manage. And that's what I've noticed. There's Wolf Pack and Rebellion Pack and TYT Army and 7 other projects. Have you noticed ever since Yang lost the presidency, he's managing 9 projects?
I can believe that.
It's
I'm
the
at the
same
point
thing.
where I'm just gonna block him because he hurts my head.
Oh, Yang?
Yeah, his posts are just atrocious.
Oh, they are. But now I want to ask, you've interviewed, and I want to give you a theory on this. You've interviewed Rokana before, right?
4 times.
4 times. So I want to see if you get this theory. So the thing I've noticed about Ro is he will go on 30 different shows, all different spectrums to the left. He'll go on TYT, he'll go on Jimmy Dore, he'll go on shows like yours, etc., within a very short time span. He'll say all the right things, and then he'll go back to Congress and not do any of that. Does that sound right?
Well, TYT definitely isn't left, but yeah, he definitely goes on a number of shows. He has gone on my show 4 times and shared things that he absolutely did stick to.
Okay.
However, the past year, I would say, has disappointed me greatly. In certain respects, like I've had him on several times when he was doing the Yemen bill, which he pulled through, and him, Bernard, and I forget the other gentleman's name, got that through, and it was history changing. And he was talking about that. He did that. He has a legislation in Congress he's had where he brings it to on the floor, and he has congressmen and women sign it to agree not to take any big money on their next campaigns, and he has gotten a list that has actually signed it. So he does some good things.
Okay.
However, sometimes, like when he tweeted out, I'm reading Elizabeth Warren's book and it's so good and stuff, I was just like, oh fuck, I can't, nope, done.
Do you know which book it was?
I don't know. She just came out with a new one a couple months ago.
Oh, that's the worst one. At least her other books were somewhat lefty. This book is just like What Happened by Hillary Clinton.
Oh God, I'll never know. I can't even look at her.
Yeah, her new book is basically copying Hillary's book, What Happened, her new book. I won't read it for that reason. I've read 2 of her books, and she says all the right things in her book. The problem is she doesn't practice them on the Senate floor.
I'll be damned if I give that bitch a dime, and I'm not letting her in this headspace, because every time I see her talk or an article with her, I can't. She repulses
Well, she's
me.
a big disappointment because she came up through the Occupy Wall Street movement. Everybody had such high hopes for her. And after a couple of years in the Senate, she was part of the club.
Mm-hmm.
It took them time. It took them a couple of years, but they integrated her. Just like they do to pretty much everybody at this point.
Well, I mean, she was a Republican for 47 years of her life, and that's
Federalist Society Republican
of her life. So, I mean, when you're a staunch Republican through the women's movement, the gay movement, the civil rights movement, I don't really expect you to be like some progressive.
Well, here's the other thing. When people look at her policies, not all of her policies are inherently left. There are very specific issues on her platform, for example, banking and specific financial issues where she's moved to the left. On a lot of the other issues, she stayed the same place. that when she was a Republican, it's like 3 or 4 specific issues, which everybody thinks because she's on the right side of those 4 issues that she's some kind of staunch progressive. But if you really look at her policies, it's 4 issues or 5 issues individually, and people don't know that.
She's a complete war hawk. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
she
Definitely not on foreign policy. Is she in the right place? You're right.
she's atrocious. Yeah, and never mind what she did to Standing Rock or lack
Mm-hmm.
thereof, the complete and utter racism
Mm-hmm.
of my granddaddy told me I must be Indian because I have high cheekbones, and lying about being indigenous after all the hell natives have gone through and continue to go through. That is so incredibly racist. And the fact that people did not listen to indigenous peoples who were screaming how racist this was, and they just glossed over it like, oh well, I mean,
She's definitely, she does not have the best political instincts because she's alienated herself from, she's never going to be allowed to be truly part of the club in Washington because of her stances on certain banking policies, and she's alienated herself from the progressive space because of what happened with Bernie. So she really doesn't have a home, and that's her fault.
good.
She had the opportunity. Here's what she knew, and she should have known this. If she didn't know this, she's a moron. That if Biden won, she wasn't going to get anything, and she should have known that. And if Hillary won, she wasn't going to get anything, and she should have known that. If she didn't know that, she's a moron. The only person who would even consider giving her a position would have been Bernie Sanders. He's the only one who would have been willing to help her on that, and she didn't. Either she's the biggest idiot in the world, or she just really doesn't want the power to do anything like people thought she did.
Yep, and she refused to shake his hand twice, and oh my god.
Yeah, Bernie
I
would have.
wanted to jump through that TV.
Mm-hmm. And do you remember the story came out right before she called Bernie a sexist? The story came out. They wanted to make his campaign was exploring making her VP and Treasury Secretary at the same time. Don't tell me she didn't see that story. And
Yep.
don't tell me she didn't know about that.
But the good thing about that, she lost a lot of her own supporters.
She did.
When she came out and said that. It backfired tremendously. Because we're all pulling up articles that says, like, Bernie's like, I want a woman president. It's time for a woman president. It's not, and we have, like, receipt after receipt after receipt. And he's like, I endorsed Hillary and campaigned for her to be president, which,
that was
me, but
yes.
Still,
but she had the opportunity. If she would have backed Bernie in 2016, forget even 2016. Let's do a lot of Bernie supporters I know. They wiped the slate clean. They said, okay, you have another chance here. It's 2020. You're not going to win the election. Endorse Bernie. Oh, no, I can't do that. I need to see who wins the election first so I can get a position. That's not how it works.
I never forgave her. Ever. Never will. She, we actually had this thing in the burner groups where we were sending hundreds of emails, hundreds of postcards, calling hundreds of times. Please endorse Bernie. Please, please, please. This could make all the difference. I think we would have won. I really, really, really.
Here's the thing. If before Super Tuesday, let's even forget Super Tuesday 1. If she endorsed him before Super Tuesday 2, he still could have made up those votes. She could have been like, you know what? I made a mistake at Super Tuesday. Okay, we have another round of states coming on. Let me endorse him now. It would have made a difference. He might have been able to catch up. It could have helped him in New York because I know she was popular through the Occupy Wall Street. Her endorsement could have helped in New York. It could have helped in a lot of different places, and she kind of screwed up. Let's go ahead and look at this. Kelly Lane seems to be the only one putting in chats right now. With any party comes money that corrupts in hierarchy of power. Okay. But yeah, she had a massive opportunity twice and to make the difference, and she didn't do it. And that's something that you can't really come back from that.
Yeah.
Plus, everybody forgets Bernie asked her to run in 2016 instead of him. He said, "Why don't you do it?" Oh, well, I made a deal with Hillary in 2013. I can't run. First of all, you can't make a deal with Hillary. That's my thing. You cannot trust a word that woman says.
Yep. And then before everything went down, there was an article with a picture of Warren and Hillary together at what do you call it? The hoity-toity New England. I can't think of it. It's like this rich vineyard place, this richy place. So anyway, they were there meeting for lunch, Warren and Hillary. So I'm sure that was just casual.
Definitely, yeah. I want to give you
Martha's Vineyard. That's what
yes, Martha's Vineyard. I want to give you this what if scenario. I hate what ifs, but I'm going to give this to you. So let's say you were, as horrible as it sounds, you were Elizabeth Warren's top advisor, and she said to you, "I'm going to go make a deal with Hillary to get her to stop certain people from coming into the cabinet." What do you think? What would your immediate response have been?
I would say, do you want to be number 51 on her hit list? I would say, stay the fuck away from her.
Mm-hmm.
She is dirty. She is a curse of death. And, like, I knew your political instincts suck, but this is pretty bad.
Yeah. So we have Dolores Pierce saying Lizzie was hoping to get that VP slot. She was, but the only person who was even going to consider giving it to her was Bernie. And that's a fact. I think that we could agree on that. Biden was never going to let her have it. She was on the list for show.
Absolutely.
Plus, I'm pretty sure they picked Klobuchar before they changed to Harris, personally.
Yeah. And then Klobuchar came out and said, I'm going to resign from consideration. I don't know if you guys remember that, but she actually did that, which shows perhaps they made her an offer. If we do pick you for VP, I don't know, but she came out and said, I have rescinded my name. I think it should be a woman of color. Literally, that's what she said. And then all the Warren stands were like, oh my God, you just fucked over Elizabeth Warren. And I'm like, she said she's a woman of color. She's still in the fucking race. What the hell are you pissed about?
Technically, plus, why wouldn't she? What loyalty does Amy Klobuchar have to Elizabeth Warren?
Right?
The only one who had any loyalty to her was Bernie Sanders before she betrayed him. Nobody else in that race was going to give her anything. He was the only one who would have, because Bernie's a nice guy, and we all know that, he would have told her, forget about 2016, thank you for the endorsement, let's talk about something. He's that kind of guy who probably would have done that.
That's what upsets me about him. Like, I love that he has that kind of heart, but I interviewed his brother, Larry Sanders, who is an elected UK Green Party healthcare advisor. And, he kept saying Bernard is loyal to a fault. And I said, I know, because when he puts his hand on Liz Warren's back, I convulse. I'm like, oh my fucking God, don't touch her. It's heartbreaking. I'm like, Bernie, stop. She's awful. Don't. Just tell her to fuck off.
He is, but I wouldn't have been. Here's the thing: if he made the deal with her, if he had to buy her dropout, I really don't care. If he give her, at the end of the day, if he won the election, that's all that really mattered to me. So if he had to give her VP or he had to give her Treasury Secretary to get her out of the race, and he had to purchase her her dropping out, I honestly didn't care. I just wanted her out of the race by any means necessary, and for Bernie to win that primary. I would have taken the hit because you could have a worse VP or a worse Treasury Secretary.
I would have taken it too, and it's only because VPs traditionally are pretty much in the background. Except for this time, we're seeing Kamala is not in the background because our president is completely not there in his head. So she kind of has had to step up and take over. But traditionally, I think if Bernard won and she became VP, as much as I would hate it, if that's what it took to get him, then I would have just dealt with it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Plus, you could have a worse VP because he could have picked a Klobuchar, or he could have picked a Harris, who have no lefty instincts at all on any issues. So, at the end of the day, if he did that, he could have picked somebody worse, and you could always think about it like that. Let's see. So, now, so have you been working on any new projects lately? I remember you working on the complaint to the UN. How's that going? And what is that for those who don't know?
I'm sorry, on what?
The complaint to the UN?
Oh, yes. That is still in the works. So essentially, we are filing a complaint with the United Nations for human rights violation, for letting people suffer and die in the middle of a pandemic without giving them Medicare for all. Right now in our country, there are over 50 million people who are uninsured, and that is not including the underinsured. So this is a human rights violation. So we are working with healthcare nonprofit lawyers and people who have dealt with these egregious situations before. They're helping us fill out this entire huge packet of all the things we need to do before we can present it to the United Nations. But it needs to go on file that what is happening is not okay. Sometimes there just needs to be that tangible evidence in history to say, news clips from back then make it seem like healthcare is available. Okay, well, check the thing we filed with the UN. Check the National Lawyers Guild and these human rights violation lawyers who are working hours and hours free of charge because they believe in what we're doing. So that's one thing that's been going on, is trying to get all that paperwork. Once it is ready, we will announce on M for M for All. It's the same people who did the Medicare for All marches, and we will be having a rally at the park. It's the UN park right next to it. So with speakers and such, the day we deliver it.
Definitely, absolutely. It's pivotal. So we have Kelly Lane. Kelly Lane is the only one who wants to participate in the chat today. Anyone hear about Judge Pereska in Dozinger case completely disregard the UN working group obituary detention recommendations? Or arbitrary, I think that must be. Yeah.
Oh, I haven't heard that yet.
Okay, and then she says, just as the U.S. ignores UN special repertoire on torture, Nils Melezer's recommendations on Assange. And then she says, very glad you're involving the UN on re-inference.
And, as far as Assange goes, I was on a Assange panel Friday, Action for Assange. And there was a gentleman on, David, I'm going to say his name wrong. I believe it's McRae. But his Twitter is at Murdoch something. Anyway, he's in Australia, and yeah, David McRae. And he is facing 5 years in prison for releasing documentation on Afghanistan. And he's wonderful. He actually is okay with going to prison because he wants things like Assange's case to get, this freedom of speech, to be called out. These people are being penalized because they're sharing things, not because they're hacking things or creating things. They're sharing things, and they're winding up in prison. So I'll be having him on my show as well later this month. But it's definitely something that needs to be talked about more, for sure.
Absolutely. And I want to pivot a little bit back to third parties. So this was recent. A couple of weeks ago, we saw in Georgia, Princess Blanding. I'm not sure if you paid any attention to the Princess Blanding story in Georgia.
What's it called?
Her name is Princess Blanding, and she's running for governor. So this woman, Princess Blanding, she's running with a new party called the Liberation Party for governor in Georgia. She's the first African-American woman to ever make it onto the ballot. And she got on the ballot. They invited her to the debate, not to participate in the debate, to sit there and watch the Democrat and Republican debate. So I'm going to play a video here. She got up at the debate, and this is what transpired.
We might get to the wide area where they cause these continuously rising crimes in our neighborhood. It's absolutely ridiculous, and I am the only candidate that represents the fight seriously for the working class. And that's the new spirit at the end of it, and you can get out of my street. Thank you. You can get out of my street.
He's on the ballot.
We will
He's on the ballot.
Pipeline. I will defend our trans students. You are touching me, and you might want to get up off of me. Thank you. You can call me what you want, but the reality of it is, I'm educated, and I have to travel from Middle Peninsula all the way up to Alexandria because people are not paid professional wages. That's a 3.5-hour drive is what I had to do. Again, I will fight for working class Virginia. You must want to get off of me. You are now assaulting me. Get off of me. You are assaulting me. Do not touch me. Again, on the ballot, you I am on the ballot. Why am I not on the stage? Why am I not on the stage? Glenn, you said that I have the right to be up on the stage. Why aren't you fighting to be up on the stage?
So that's just a little bit of that clip. I want to get your reaction to that.
I'm offended. I've never seen that. My reaction is, fuck yes. Fuck yes. Make noise. Every single person should be able to debate, period. It is only democracy if every candidate can speak their mind and answer the questions. The reason they are not able to is because they are fearful that they will have better, more genuine, more people-friendly answers. That's the problem. Well, you are a threat to us and our donors, so we don't want to give you a voice. And that's exactly what happened to this woman. And now I got to follow her because that was kick-ass. And that took so much guts. And, people were saying, well, why aren't you on the ballot? And she's like, I am on the ballot. And that just proves, like, they don't promote these people. People get there to vote, and they're like, I don't know who this person is, so I'm just going to vote for this person. And that happens all the time.
Now, we can't have another incident like 1999 where Jesse Ventura defeats the two major candidates with hardly any money. We can't have that happen again. So we got to bar these people from the debates.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when they do get into the debates and they start to do well, they change the rules. For example, the Maine election, we had a woman named Lisa Savage running as an independent with the Greens endorsement. She's amazing. She made it into the first two debates. And then they changed the rules on her. so she couldn't make it into the last couple of debates.
Yep,
They were just afraid she was going to win.
absolutely. And she certainly had the possibility to.
Well, the other thing, Maine, as horrible as he is, Maine elected Angus King as an independent. So if somebody more left-wing running as an independent, in theory, they could get elected too, because Maine is receptive to independents.
Maine also has ranked choice voting.
Which is how she even got that way in the first place. And I talked to some of the people working on her campaign. They were very passionate. They thought she had a shot, but that was all before they barred her from the last couple of debates. So I want to get to, you're also doing something with Fred Hampton Left, right?
Yeah, so every week for the past month and a half, myself and a few comrades have been joining Fred Hampton Leftists every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Eastern. And we're doing panel shows where we discuss current news and just kind of go around the panel and talk about these things. And we actually are now, Compton J actually has another channel as well. And it's called the Populist Voice Network. And it is being revamped. I am one of 8 new shows that is going to begin next Monday. So there are 7. There are 7 new shows starting next Monday. All on Populist Voice Network. So please definitely subscribe on YouTube. But yeah, my show will be Monday nights at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And I am doing a show with 2 co-hosts, Logan and Andrew. We are a motley crew, which I love. We are so different, and all 3 of us are leftists, but we come from different perspectives, which makes for really good discussion. And I met both of them on the panel discussions, and we just kind of clicked. So I invited them to do this. So I am still doing my own show, but on Wednesdays I'm on FHL, and on Mondays I'm on PVN. So
that's very good. So everybody check that out. That's the Populist Voice Network and the Fred Hampton Left Network. And your channel as well. What is your channel called?
Savage Joy Marie Man.
Okay.
And I just got approved for Rockfin.
Oh, wonderful. Definitely. Rockfin, have you tried to get on Odyssey as well or no?
No, I have not. But I'm going to try to, because everyone says they're awesome.
Yeah. I think one has a much easier process than the other, if I remember right. I'm not sure. I think that Rockfin, there's an approval process. I don't know if there is for Odyssey.
There is for Rockfin, but I mean, I'm fortunate because they already knew who I was, because I was on them through my networks.
Right. So they already knew. Okay. Makes sense. Now, I want to ask you, let's go a little bit to third-party politics. Again, so direct action is obviously important, but this may be a form of direct action as well. So in the last election cycle, the leftmost party of the United States decided to run Howie Hawkins. Now, I've met him a couple of times. I like he's a nice guy. I like him, but he's not an exciting candidate. And he has the right policies. He's a nice guy, but nice guys don't win elections. Is where I'm at with that. And most of the people I know liked his VP, and that's why they voted for him. I'm going to be honest with that. They're like, oh, I like Angela. Howie's all right. I'll take him with Angela. So, do you think that if this is our opposition, they have to do better in who they nominate? If this is what the opposition is going to look like, they have to be a little bit better with that?
I mean, without question. dude ran 20 times before. Okay, like this is just not a good idea. He, I've met him a few times. He bores me to death. I just can't. I can't with him. I find him so dull, so unexciting, and he failed 20 times. This is not someone you want to run. Angela, on the other hand, I've had on my show multiple times. She is a quote on the back of my book. She is freaking fierce. I love her.
So
If she would have been on top, they would have done so much better.
You flip the ticket. You have Angela, who's more fiery and much more personable, with Howie and his knowledge at the bottom of the ticket in order to help guide her on certain things, policy making stuff.
Howie did make some incredibly insensitive comments about Chelsea Manning.
Mm-hmm.
And he has made, he's made, some comments about things that I'm just like, I'm not okay with that. I wanted to vote for Angela, but I couldn't vote for him. So I did what I did in 2016, and I wrote Bernard in.
Definitely. And there were some other candidates that nobody talks to. I'm not sure if you heard what your thoughts are on Mark Charles, if you paid any attention to him.
I had Mark on my show. I think he's incredible. I think he's a wonderful person. I think he's educated, and he has done so much work with natives. He was not on my ballot in Pennsylvania.
He's only in one state. He was write-in in most states except for one.
Yep.
And that's the problem.
Yeah, but I mean, he was good. Like,
would he have gotten your vote if he was on your ballot?
I mean, I would have gone with Bernard still.
You still would have, yeah. But yeah. What do you? So we can both agree the Green Party's got to do a better job at putting up some kind of opposition.
They've got to do a better job in a lot of ways. Their organization, I mean, they have no organizational skills. They just don't. I mean, they try to accomplish things on having the name Green Party and simply not being part of the duopoly. And they need more organizational skills.
Definitely. And the other thing I've noticed about Howie is in New York, upstate New York, he does fine. If you want to run him in a governor's race in New York to get ballot access, he'll probably do okay. Because we did that. They did that with him in New York. He got over 1%. He got the Greens their ballot access, and that was the only goal of his run. It wasn't to win. It was just to get ballot access. He's fine in a race like that in New York. When you put him on a national scale and try to get him to appeal to all these people, it doesn't work.
I've never met a fan of his. I met fans of Angela and fans of the Green Party and fans of not voting for the duopoly. So I don't think he got any votes, like in the presidential run whatsoever.
Definitely. Well, it's very likely most of his votes in New York when he ran for governor came from Green Party voters who just vote Green.
Exactly.
What did you think about Jill Stein in the year before?
I met her. She was very nice. She talked to me a lot about my activism, was very, engaging. And I told her I wrote Bernard in, and she said, I understand, that was a great choice. While being at Occupy DNC and marching for the injustice and stuff, I really didn't like her. And it was not her, but it was the fact that I was there with thousands of burners. And before he even dropped out, they're putting Jill Stein stickers on Bernie posters. And they were just so ready to just give him up. I mean, the convention was still going on.
So you would have, if they were going to do that, you would say you have to wait till after the convention to do anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, let us grieve. I mean, let us grieve. And I mean, Jill came and she capitalized on it. That's why she got so many votes. She can. I'm not saying I blamed her. I mean,
Well,
you're
that's her job. Her job was to get votes and to try to win an election. And that's what
I mean,
she did.
we all knew we were going to get fucked over, but
Yeah.
I just didn't want to see him replaced. Like, all the Bernie groups were now Jill Stein groups. Like, it was immediate. And I was like, dude, like, can we just, like, go through this grieving process? I don't want to replace him. I want to just, like, she's different. They have different takes on things. They're different parties. They're different people.
Mhm.
I also think it was incredibly disingenuous when she made a tweet that said, I would love to run on the ticket with Bernie. Well, you knew damn right well he never would have done that. And that was a way to get more votes. And it worked.
And what would have happened, though, here's the thing. Now, she'd be stuck to that. If he took her up on that offer, she'd have to step aside.
Well, no, she would have been the VP.
She would have been the VP. Okay.
Yeah, she just said she wanted to run with him. And hell, if he would have said, okay, I'm voting for him, I don't fucking care.
Well, that's a decent ticket, honestly. At the end of the day.
What's that?
I said at the end of the day, that would have been a decent ticket.
Yeah. But unfortunately, it seemed pretty, I don't know. Like, nobody thought he was actually going to do it.
No, but if he did, it would have shocked the system.
Yeah.
And then the last one I want to ask, last candidate from them I want to ask before we start pivoting a little bit is Cynthia McKinney. She's the, what do you think about her?
I think she's wonderful.
And everybody forgets she was in the House too before she ran. And she didn't take any shit from the Democratic Party. She basically did what she wanted to do while she was in that House. And they couldn't have her stay there. She was what the squad was supposed to be in a lot of ways.
Yep. Yeah, when she followed me, I kind of fangirled a little. I'm not going to lie. She's amazing.
Oh,
She's the first green, like, I ever heard of.
Yeah.
I never heard of, like, a Green Party until I found out who she was.
Definitely, yeah. She was a real threat to the Democrats. So here's one. If you want to respond to this, I think this is in response to you saying that that Jill Stein, capitalized on Bernie, and the people started switching Jill Stein. So Kelly Lane says Bernie had already endorsed Hillary. Many were done with him at that point. So if you want to go respond to Kelly.
I mean, I get it. I'm not saying fuck you for doing it. I'm saying as someone who was marching 8 miles a day in 100-degree heat and shit, I don't want to see you give up that easily. We came here for Bernie. It's like we're second day in. You're here saying you're fighting for Bernie. You have Bernie shirts on. You got Bernie signs. And all of a sudden, ooh, Jill Stein speaking, I'm just going to replace him. No, the fact of the matter is we're supposed to be there for Bernie because they're supposed to feel our fury. If they think we just give up and pick another person, they don't understand. That's not going to have the same effect. We don't want our opposers to be like, oh, well, they already moved on. It's not a big deal. Fuck it.
Well, no, then they'll blame you and say that Jill Stein stole the votes from Hillary.
She what?
Well, it's what the Democrats say. I don't say it. The Democrats say that Jill Stein stole votes from Hillary Clinton and siphoned off her votes.
Yeah.
That's a good one. But here's the other thing. If you poll those voters, about 80% of them wouldn't have shown up if Stein wasn't on the ballot in the first place. So those votes were never Hillary's to begin with.
Never. Never. And they're like, oh, you're sexist because you didn't vote for Hillary. Millions of people voted for Jill. She's a damn woman. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, but she's not a Democrat.
Oh, that's right. She's only half woman then.
She doesn't have the D next to her name. You see, If you don't have the D next to your name, you're not important. You got to remember.
That's true.
You know, the second that Cynthia McKinney got rid of the D next to her name, you know, the Democrats classify her as a lunatic and all this other stuff. She's awesome. But let's try to wrap up here. I wanted to ask you about your background behind you. How was that? What is there a story behind the clock? What does it say on the clock?
Oh, it says Savage Joy, the Unruly Hour. That's the name of my show. And it has a 13 o'clock because that's from 1984.
Okay. And was your show always called The Unruly Hour through all the organizations you've worked with?
I came up with that like a year ago. It was always just Savage Joy, but now it's Savage Joy, the Unruly Hour.
Okay. And Dolores Pierce says, I voted for Jill Stein. Okay. It's nice. So before we go, can you want to repeat when all your shows are?
Yeah, I'm making a list here. So you can follow me as Savage Joy Marie Mann on YouTube. I did just get a Rockfin. You can expect that being posted either today or tomorrow. And Fred Hampton Leftist, I'll be on Wednesday. Wednesdays. 5:30 and 8. We do our panels. This Friday, I'll be back to join Savvy Sabs at 6. Thursday, I have my This Week's News shows where I go through and show clips of videos of what has happened during the week and screenshots and tweets and all of those things. Then Monday is the premiere of my new show on Populous Voice Network, started by Compton J. And I will have my two co-hosts, Logan and Andrew. And then we actually have 7 shows premiering next week. So please sign up for them on YouTube, which is Populous Voice Network. And then the other exciting thing I have is I am flying to LA on October 20th and to do a book signing of my Shitlib parody book with Pat the Burner, aka Peter Douche. And I'm also going to be doing comedy with Jimmy Dore, Steph, and Rick Overton, and it's going to be a great time. So comedy show / book signing. There are a few tickets left if you're in the LA area. It's my pin post on Twitter.
Too bad I'm in New York. I would have come to see that.
I'm just like, I can't even believe I'm being talked into doing comedy. This could be
a disaster.
A mess.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay. You can stay for a minute after. I want to ask you a question, but I'm going to end the stream.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for watching. Bye.